My boyfriend collected hundreds of secret photos of my sister, then blamed me for invading his privacy. When I threatened to go to the police, he said, "You're completely misunderstanding the situation. I just left." That was 12 days ago. This morning we had to go to trial for his various crimes. What's the most disturbing thing you've seen that you were never meant to see? Yesterday, while my boyfriend Derek was gone, I went to use one of his computers, and when I opened it, it took me straight to the photo albums. I was shocked to see hundreds of pictures of my sister Vanessa saved. Most were pulled from her social media accounts, but there were also pictures of her from her track team's website. That wasn't even the worst. There was an album that only consisted of creep shots and videos. The album contained pictures of her sleeping and getting changed. You could clearly see that my sister wasn't aware she was being recorded. The last picture he uploaded was literally last week. I was so creeped out. I've been with him for a year, and he's literally good friends with my sister. They hang out a good amount and go to the gym together, which makes this even creepier. As I continued looking, I realized some pictures dated back 4 to 5 months before we were dating. He probably used me to get closer to her. That realization sent chills down my spine. I also went on the internet, and it was clear that he had an obsession with my sister, and he had extremely violent and disturbing fantasies about her. Think BDSM and beandage, but 10 times worse. I went over to my sister's place before my boyfriend could get home and explained everything, even showing her the proof on the laptop. When she got to the creep shots, I saw her physically recoil. I showed her the browser history too, though I warned her it was disturbing. She didn't believe that my ex was behind this for different reasons. He's like my brother. He's supposed to be in love with you. She kept making excuses too. Maybe his laptop was hacked. Maybe it was his roommate from before he moved in with me. Maybe someone was trying to frame him. But why would anyone do that? I asked her. I pointed out that some of the photos were clearly taken from angles only Derek could have managed, like during family gatherings or when he was alone with her at the gym. I reminded her that the most recent ones were from just last week, but she wouldn't accept it. We argued for almost an hour. I was getting more frustrated and scared by the minute. Why wouldn't she believe me? The proof was literally right in front of her face. Eventually, she said she needed time to process everything and would talk to Derek herself to get his side of the story. That's when I really panicked. If she confronted him, who knows what he might do. I begged her not to talk to him, at least not alone. I suggested we go to the police together. She refused, saying we couldn't ruin his life without being absolutely sure. She said I was overreacting and needed to calm down. Overreacting? I shouted, pointing at the screen. He has pictures of you changing clothes. He's researching date repeat substances. How is that overreacting? Maybe there's an explanation, she insisted, though she couldn't offer what that might be. Derek's always been so respectful to me. This doesn't make sense. How could I calm down? My boyfriend had been stalking my sister for over a year and possibly had violent intentions toward her, and now she wanted to confront him alone? I felt like I was in a nightmare. I left her apartment feeling completely helpless. I couldn't go home. What if Derek was there? What would I say to him? I couldn't stay with Vanessa since she didn't believe me. I couldn't go to my parents because they adore Derek and would probably react the same way Vanessa did. I sat in my car for nearly 30 minutes trying to figure out what to do. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Derek asking when I'd be home. Apparently he'd gotten off work early and was waiting for me. Each message made my heart race faster. What if he'd already discovered the laptop was missing? I ended up checking into a cheap motel near the highway. I've been here for the past 18 hours, ignoring Derek's increasingly worried texts asking where I am. He called 23 times last night. I haven't answered. I don't know what to do. I've barely slept. Every time I hear footsteps outside or a car door slam, I peek through the curtains. Terrified, I'll see Derek standing there. This morning I got a text from Vanessa saying she talked to Derek. Apparently he had a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything, and she believes him. She wouldn't tell me what the explanation was, just that I should come home and talk to him. Yeah, right. Like I'm going to walk back into that house alone. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I overreacting? The evidence seems so clear to me, but my own sister thinks I'm being paranoid or jealous or something. How could she think I'd make this up? Derek just texted again saying he's worried sick and doesn't understand why I disappeared. He says he needs to talk to me about a misunderstanding. So Vanessa definitely told him everything. Great. Now he knows that I know, and he's still trying to play innocent. His latest message was even more unsettling. I know you're upset, but this is all just a big misunderstanding. Please come home so we can talk about this like adults. I love you, not Vanessa. I can explain everything. I don't know what his explanation could possibly be. How do you explain having hundreds of secret photos of your girlfriend's sister, including ones taken without her knowledge? How do you explain violent search histories? You can't. There's no innocent explanation for this. I'm terrified of what happens next. If I go home, I'll be alone with someone I now realize I don't know at all. Someone who might be dangerous. If I don't go home, where do I go? I can't afford this motel for more than another night or two. I called in sick to work today. I can't focus on anything. I keep checking the parking lot through the curtains to make sure Derek's car isn't out there. I've pushed the dresser in front of the door even though I'm on the second floor. The worst part is feeling so alone in this. The person I would normally turn to in a crisis is Derek. My sister doesn't believe me. My parents would probably take Derek's side too. They're always talking about what a catch he is and how lucky I am. I've thought about calling the police, but what would I say? I found creepy pictures on my boyfriend's computer. Would they even take that seriously? Would they do anything without Vanessa making a complaint too? I don't think so. I just got another text from Derek saying he's coming to look for me if I don't respond soon. He says he's worried I might hurt myself because I'm not thinking clearly. That feels like a threat disguised as concern. Like he's setting up a narrative that I'm unstable. I don't know what to do. I've been staring at my phone for the past hour, watching Derek's texts roll in one after another. Each one makes my stomach twist a little more. The latest one says he's contacted some friends to help look for me because he's so worried. That sounds like a threat, like he's organizing a search party to hunt me down. I decided to call my friend Amber. We've known each other since school, and she's always been my rock during tough times. I was hesitant to drag anyone else into this mess, but I needed someone on my side, someone who wouldn't immediately take Derek's side. The call went to voicemail twice before she finally picked up. I tried to explain everything as calmly as possible, but I broke down crying halfway through. Amber listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, there was a long pause on the line. Holy crap, she finally said. That's seriously messed up. Where are you now? I told her about the motel, but made her promise not to tell anyone. She offered to come pick me up right away. I was reluctant at first because what if Derek somehow followed her? But the thought of spending another night alone in this depressing room was unbearable. While waiting for Amber, I checked my bank account. The motel had already maxed out my credit card, and I only had about $200 in my checking account. Derek and I shared most of our expenses, which now seemed like another way he'd established control over me. I realized with a sinking feeling that almost everything I owned was in our apartment, like clothes, important documents. Amber arrived about 40 minutes later. I peeked through the curtains before opening the door, half expecting to see Derek lurking in the parking lot. The relief I felt seeing only Amber's familiar blue Honda was overwhelming. She gave me a huge hug as soon as I opened the door. I hadn't realized how much I needed that human contact until that moment. I started crying again, and she just held me while I got it out of my system. "You look like crap," she said when I finally pulled away. That made me laugh despite everything. Trust Amber to be brutally honest. I grabbed my few belongings and checked out of the motel. The girl at the front desk gave me a sympathetic look, probably assuming I was running from an abusive boyfriend. I guess in a way, I was. In Amber's car, my phone buzzed again. Derek had sent a photo of my toothbrush with the message, "See, I'm just worried about you. You didn't even take your toothbrush. Please come home." The fact that he was monitoring what items I had or hadn't taken made me feel even more uneasy. Amber lives in a small one-bedroom apartment across town. It's not much, but it felt like a fortress compared to that motel room. She immediately started making up the couch for me and ordered pizza. The normalcy of it made me feel human again. "So what's your plan?" Amber asked after we'd demolished half the pizza. I had to admit I didn't have one. I couldn't stay on her couch forever, but I couldn't go home either. And I was worried sick about Vanessa, even if she wasn't worried about herself. "I think we need more evidence," Amber said thoughtfully. "Something Vanessa and your parents can't deny." "Like what?" "I already showed her the pictures," I replied. "Yeah, but Derek obviously gave her some BS explanation that she bought. We need something that can't be explained away." We spent the next few hours brainstorming. Amber suggested setting up some kind of sting operation to catch Derek in the act of stalking Vanessa, but that seemed too risky. What if he realized it was a trap? What if he got violent? Around midnight, my phone rang. It was my mom. My heart sank thinking Vanessa had told her everything. I answered hesitantly. My mom sounded worried. She said Derek had called them looking for me, claiming I'd had some kind of episode and run off with wild accusations. He told them I might contact them and that I was not in my right mind. The manipulation made my blood boil. I tried to explain what was really happening, but I could tell from her tone that she was skeptical. She kept saying things like, "Are you sure you're not misinterpreting things?" And "Derek seems so devoted to you." When I mentioned the creep shots of Vanessa, she got quiet, then said Vanessa had already told her about the misunderstanding. "What misunderstanding?" I demanded. "How do you explain secret photos of your girlfriend's sister changing clothes?" My mom sighed. Vanessa said Derek explained everything. Something about a security system he was testing. And the other photos were for some surprise project? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A security system? That was the best excuse he could come up with, and my family was buying it? "Mom, he has hundreds of photos of Vanessa going back before we even met. How does that fit with his explanation?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know all the details, honey, but Derek seems really concerned about you. He says you've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe you should come home and talk to him." I hung up feeling completely defeated. Derek had somehow managed to spin this whole situation around, making me look like the unstable one, and my family was buying it completely. Amber looked at me sympathetically. Families can be blind sometimes. They want to believe the best about people they've accepted. The next morning, I woke up to more texts from Derek. He'd gone from concerned to angry overnight. Now he was saying things like, "I can't believe you're doing this to us," and "after everything I've done for you." The shift in tone confirmed what I already knew. His concern was just an act. I also had a text from Vanessa asking me to meet her for coffee. She said she wanted to explain Derek's side of things to me face to face. I showed the message to Amber. "It could be a trap," she said immediately. "What if Derek comes too?" "I don't think Vanessa would do that," I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure anymore. But I could ask her to meet somewhere public. After some discussion, I agreed to meet Vanessa at a busy coffee shop downtown. Amber insisted on coming too, but said she'd sit at a separate table to keep watch. I agreed because the precautions seemed necessary. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early and chose a table with a clear view of both entrances. Amber came in shortly after and sat across the room, pretending to work on her laptop. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee cup. Vanessa arrived right on time. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. Part of me felt bad for her since finding out someone you trusted had been secretly obsessed with you couldn't be easy, but another part of me was still hurt that she hadn't believed me immediately. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. She ordered a latte from the passing waitress before continuing. "I know you're upset, but I really think you need to hear Derek out." I took a deep breath. What possible explanation could there be for hundreds of secret photos of you, including ones where you're changing clothes or sleeping? Vanessa looked uncomfortable. He explained everything. The photos from my social media were for a surprise anniversary gift for you. He was making a collage of your family and friends. The gym ones were because he's been helping me with my workout form. And the ones of you changing clothes? The ones taken through your bedroom window? I pressed. She shifted in her seat. He said those were a misunderstanding. He was testing a new security camera system and accidentally captured some footage. He forgot they were even on the laptop. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These explanations were so obviously fabricated, yet Vanessa seemed to have accepted them completely. "And what about the browser history? The searches about restraints and date RP substances?" I asked. Vanessa's face got red. "He said that was research for a thriller novel he's been working on. He's always wanted to write, apparently." I stared at her in disbelief. "A novel? Vanessa, come on. You can't seriously believe that." "Why not?" she asked. "It makes more sense than my sister's boyfriend being some kind of stalker. Derek has never been anything but respectful to me." "To your face," I corrected. "But behind your back, he's been obsessively collecting photos of you for over a year. We went back and forth like this for almost an hour. No matter what point I made, Vanessa had some explanation Derek had given her. It was like talking to a brick wall. Eventually, I gave up. "I'm worried about you," I told her as we were getting ready to leave. "Even if you don't believe me, please be careful around him." Vanessa's expression changed to a softer one. "I'm worried about you too. Derek really loves you, you know. He's devastated by all this." I didn't respond to that. What could I say? That her safety mattered more to me than Derek's feelings? That I was now questioning whether he'd ever loved me at all, or if I'd just been a convenient way to get close to her. After Vanessa left, Amber joined me at my table. She'd overheard most of our conversation and looked as frustrated as I felt. "Your sister is in serious denial," she said bluntly. I nodded, fighting back tears. "I don't know what to do. No one believes me." "I believe you," Amber reminded me, "and we're going to to figure this out. Back at Amber's apartment, we tried to come up with a new plan. I was running out of options. I couldn't stay on Amber's couch indefinitely. I needed my things from the apartment, and most importantly, I needed to make sure Vanessa was safe, even if she didn't think she was in danger. What if we go to your apartment when Derek's at work? Amber suggested. You can get your important stuff, and maybe find more evidence while we're there. The thought of going back to the apartment made my stomach turn, but Amber had a point. I needed my things, and maybe there was more evidence I could find to convince my family. We decided to go the next day. Derek usually left for work around 8 a.m. and didn't come home until after 6 p.m. That would give us plenty of time to search the apartment and pack up my essentials. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Derek finding us in the apartment. The next morning, I checked my phone to find more messages from Derek. These were different from the others since he was almost pleading. He said he missed me, that he could explain everything, that he'd been stupid, but it wasn't what I thought. The change in tone was jarring and only made me more suspicious. Amber and I arrived at my apartment building around 9:30 a.m. I was so nervous I could barely breathe as we approached the door. What if Derek had decided to work from home today? What if he was waiting inside? I used my key as quietly as possible and slowly pushed the door open, holding my breath. The apartment was silent. Derek's jacket wasn't on the hook by the door, and his keys weren't in the bowl on the entryway table. He was definitely gone. The relief was immediate but short-lived. Being back in the apartment felt surreal. Let's be quick, Amber said. What do you need to get? I made a mental list. Important documents, enough clothes for at least a week, my laptop and charger, toiletries, and a few sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave behind. While I gathered these things, Amber said she'd look for more evidence. I went to our bedroom first. Opening the closet we shared felt strange. Derek's neatly pressed work shirts hanging next to my more casual clothes. I grabbed a duffel bag from the top shelf and started throwing in whatever I could fit. Clothes, shoes, a photo album of my family, minus Derek, my favorite books. In the bathroom, I collected my toiletries and makeup. My eyes landed on Derek's electric razor and cologne, ordinary items that now seemed sinister somehow. Had he been using that cologne when he was secretly taking pictures of my sister? Had he been planning what to do to her while shaving each morning? I moved to the living room to get my laptop and charger. As I unplugged the charger from the wall, I noticed something odd behind the TV stand. It looked like a small black device, about the size of a USB drive. I pulled it out and examined it. Amber, can you come look at this? Amber came in from the spare room where she'd been searching. She took the device from me and turned it over in her hands. I think this is a camera, she said finally. A mini spy camera. My blood ran cold. A camera? In our living room? Amber nodded. These things can connect to Wi-Fi and stream footage directly to a phone or computer. I felt violated in a whole new way. Had Derek been watching me even when he wasn't home? Had he been recording me without my knowledge? We should check the rest of the apartment, Amber suggested. There might be more. We spent the next hour searching every room. We found 3 more cameras, one in the bedroom hidden in a bookshelf, one in the bathroom disguised as a smoke detector, and another in the spare room pointing directly at my desk. Each discovery made me feel sicker than the last. This is beyond creepy, Amber said, collecting all the cameras in a plastic bag. This is illegal, I said. The implications were overwhelming. Derek hadn't just been stalking my sister, he'd been surveilling me too. Every private moment, every conversation, everything I'd done in what I thought was the privacy of my own home had potentially been recorded. We need to check his computer, I said suddenly. The one in the spare room, maybe the footage from these cameras is saved there. We went back to the spare room where his gaming setup dominated the space. His main computer was password protected, but I knew the password. I immediately went to the file explorer, looking for any suspicious folders. There were dozens of folders with technical sounding names, probably related to his work, but one folder caught my eye since it was simply labeled Home. I clicked on it and felt my stomach drop. Inside were hundreds of video files, each named with a date. I clicked on one from last week. It showed our living room. I watched myself walk in, sit on the couch, and start watching TV, completely unaware I was being recorded. Oh my god, Amber whispered beside me. I clicked on another file, this one from our bedroom. It showed me changing clothes after a shower. I quickly closed it, feeling violated and exposed. This is so messed up, I said, my voice breaking. Why would he do this? Amber put her arm around me. Some people are just sick, hun. This isn't your fault. We continued searching through the computer and found even more disturbing content. There was a folder labeled V Visits that contained footage of every time Vanessa had been to our apartment. The videos focused on her, zooming in when possible. There were also text files that appeared to be some kind of journal entries about Vanessa describing what she wore, things she said, and increasingly explicit fantasies about her. We need to take this to the police, Amber said firmly. This is stalking, invasion of privacy, maybe even sexual harassment. They have to take this seriously. I agreed, and suddenly felt validated. This was definitive proof that I hadn't been overreacting or misinterpreting anything. Derek was exactly what I feared, a par dater who had been using me to get close to my sister. We were so focused on the computer that we didn't hear the front door open. The first indication that something was wrong was a voice from the doorway of the spare room. What are you doing? I froze. Derek was standing there trying to control his anger. He was supposed to be at work. Why was he home? Amber immediately stepped in front of me, putting herself between me and Derek. She's getting her things, she said firmly. We're leaving. Derek's eyes went to the computer screen, which still showed the folder of videos. His expression changed from anger to something more calculated. This isn't what it looks like, he said, his voice eerily calm. I can explain everything. Save it, I managed to say. We've seen enough. The cameras, the videos, the pictures of my sister. There's no explanation that makes any of this okay. Derek took a step into the room. Amber and I both tensed. He held up his hands as if to show he meant no harm. It's a security system, he said. I installed it after that break-in at the building next door, remember? I was just trying to keep us safe. By hiding cameras without telling me? By recording me changing clothes? I asked, not believing his bees. And what about all the pictures of her sister? Amber added. How does that fit into your security system? Derek's face changed. You shouldn't be going through my private files. That's an invasion of my privacy. The irony of his statement was so absurd I almost laughed. Your privacy? You've been recording me without my knowledge. You've been stalking my sister for over a year. I haven't been stalking anyone, he insisted and raised his voice. You're completely misunderstanding the situation. I grabbed the bag of spy cameras from the desk. Then explain these. Explain why they were hidden all over our apartment. Explain why you have hundreds of videos of me that I never consented to. I could almost see him calculating his next move. The man I thought I knew would have been embarrassed, apologetic, maybe even ashamed if caught in such a situation. But the person person standing before me now just looked annoyed that his system had been discovered. Let's all calm down, he said finally. I can see how this looks bad out of context, but if you'll just listen, we're leaving. I cut him off and grabbed my duffel bag. I don't want to hear any more lies. I moved toward the door, but Derek stepped further into the room, blocking our exit. My heart started racing. You can't just go through my computer and take my property, he said, pointing to the bag of cameras. That's stealing. Recording someone without their knowledge is illegal, Amber shot back. We should be calling the police right now. At the mention of police, something changed in Derek's behavior. His confident facade cracked and he showed genuine fear. There's no need to involve the police, he quickly said. This is just a misunderstanding between us. We can work this out. I shook my head. There's nothing to work out. We're done. I'm getting my things and leaving. Derek's expression changed again. And where exactly are you going to go? Back to that motel? You can't afford to live on your own? You need me. His words hit me like a slap. He knew where I was this entire time. I'd rather be homeless than spend another minute with you, I said. Derek got angrier and took another step toward us. Amber immediately pulled out her phone. I'm calling 911 right now if you don't back up and let us leave, she said, her finger hovering over the call button. For a tense moment, no one moved. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then slowly, Derek stepped aside. Fine, he said. Take your stuff and go. But this isn't over. We need to talk about this like adults. There's nothing to talk about, I replied, moving past him toward the door. Amber followed close behind, keeping her phone out and ready. We quickly gathered the rest of my things and headed for the door. As we were leaving, Derek called after me. Vanessa doesn't believe you, you know. No one does. They all think you're having some kind of breakdown. I paused but didn't turn around. They will when they see what we found today. In Amber's car, I finally broke down. The adrenaline that had kept me going during the confrontation with Derek drained away, leaving me shaking and sobbing. Amber drove us straight to the police station, the bag of cameras and a USB drive containing copies of the most incriminating files on the seat between us. At the police station, we were directed to a detective named Officer Martinez. She was a middle-aged woman. I tried to explain everything as clearly as possible. The pictures of Vanessa, the hidden cameras, the disturbing search history. Officer Martinez took detailed notes and examined the cameras we'd brought. These are definitely illegal surveillance devices, she confirmed, and recording someone in their home without consent is against the law in this state. She asked if I wanted to file for a restraining order. I hadn't even considered that option, but immediately said yes. The thought of Derek showing up at Amber's apartment terrified me. What about my sister? I asked. He's been stalking her too, but she doesn't believe me. Officer Martinez frowned. Unfortunately, if she's not willing to make a complaint herself, there's not much we can do on that front, but these recordings of you are enough to start an investigation. I filled out what felt like a mountain of paperwork for the restraining order. Officer Martinez explained that once approved, Derek would be legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 100 feet of me. It wasn't much, but it was something. As we were leaving the station, my phone rang. It was Vanessa again. I hesitated before answering. Derek just called me, she said immediately. He's really upset. He said you broke into the apartment with some friend and stole his property. What's going on? I took a deep breath. I went to get my things, and we found hidden cameras all over the apartment, Vanessa. He's been recording me without my knowledge for months. We took the evidence to the police. There was a long pause on the other end. Hidden cameras? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, I said, almost angrily thinking that she wouldn't believe me again. We found 4 of them, and there were hundreds of videos on his computer. Videos of me, videos of you whenever you visited. It's all real, Vanessa. I'm not making this up. Another pause. He said you're not thinking clearly, that you've been stressed about work and— Stop it, I snapped. Stop repeating his lies. The police have the cameras now. They confirmed they're illegal surveillance devices. Why won't you believe me? I heard Vanessa take a shaky breath. It's just hard to accept. Derek has always been so nice to me. To think that he's been watching me like that, I know it's hard, I said, softer this time, but it's the truth, and I'm worried about you. He's obsessed with you, Vanessa. The things he wrote about you in his files were disturbing. What kind of things? She asked quietly. I didn't want to go into detail about the violent fantasies we'd found. Just trust me when I say they weren't normal or healthy. Please be careful around him. Don't be alone with him. I won't, she promised. And for the first time, I felt like she might actually be taking this seriously. Where are you staying? Are you safe? I told her I was with Amber, but asked her not to tell anyone, especially not Derek. She agreed and said she'd call me tomorrow after she'd had time to process everything. The next few days passed in a blur. The restraining order was approved, and Derek was officially served. He immediately violated it by sending me dozens of text messages, alternating between angry accusations and pleading apologies. I forwarded them all to Officer Martinez, who said they would strengthen our case against him. Amber helped me set up a new bank account that Derek couldn't access. I called my work and explained that I was dealing with a domestic situation and would need to work remotely for a while. My boss was surprisingly understanding and agreed to the arrangement. 4 days after our confrontation at the apartment, Vanessa called me in tears. I believe you now, she said, crying. Derek showed up at my apartment last night. He was acting so strange, saying he needed to explain things to me directly since you were poisoning everyone against him. When I wouldn't let him in, he got angry, really angry. It scared me. My heart raced. Did he hurt you? Did you call the police? No, he didn't hurt me, she assured me. My neighbor heard him yelling and came out and Derek left, but I called the police after and they took a report. They said since you already filed a restraining order against him, this helps establish a pattern. I felt a mix of relief that she was okay and vindication that she finally believed me, but mostly, I felt afraid. Derek's behavior was escalating. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you, Vanessa continued. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, he was my friend. I trusted him. I know, I said. I trusted him too. We talked for nearly an hour. Vanessa said she'd called our parents and explained everything. They were shocked and apologetic for doubting me. They wanted me to come stay with them, but I wasn't sure that was a good idea. The next day, Officer Martinez called with an update. They'd obtained a warrant to search Derek's devices based on the evidence we'd provided and my testimony. They found even more incriminating material, not just related to me and Vanessa, but evidence that he'd stalked other women before us. This guy has a pattern, Officer Martinez explained. We found similar photo collections of at least 3 other women dating back several years. One of them had filed a police report against him in another state, but nothing came of it at the time. The news was disturbing. Derek wasn't just obsessed with my sister. He was a serial stalker who had done this before. And now, finally, he was going to face consequences. Derek was arrested the following day on multiple charges related to illegal surveillance and stalking. When the police searched his car, they found more cameras and a notebook containing detailed information about Vanessa's daily routine. The relief I felt knowing he was in custody custody was overwhelming. For the first time in days, I slept through the night without waking up in a panic. But my relief was short-lived. Derek was released on bail 2 days later. The conditions of his release included no contact with me or Vanessa, but that didn't make me feel much safer. If he'd violated the restraining order so quickly, what would stop him from violating these conditions too? I decided to temporarily move in with my parents after all. They lived in a gated community with security, which seems like the safest option. Vanessa came over frequently, and we spent long hours talking through everything that had happened. Our relationship, which had been strained by her initial disbelief, was slowly healing. One evening, about a week after Derek's arrest, I was helping my mom prepare dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know where you are. This isn't over." My hand started shaking so badly I dropped the phone. My mom noticed immediately and asked what was wrong. I showed her the message. "We need to call the police," she said firmly, already reaching for her own phone. Officer Martinez responded quickly, saying they would trace the number and send a patrol car to drive by the house. She also advised us to make sure all doors and windows were locked and to call 911 immediately if we saw or heard anything suspicious. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every distant car engine had me sitting bolt upright in bed. I kept imagining Derek breaking in, coming for me or Vanessa. The rational part of my brain knew he wouldn't risk it with the police watching, but fear isn't rational. The next morning, Officer Martinez called with news. They'd traced the text to a burner phone purchased with cash, so they couldn't definitively prove Derek sent it. However, security footage from the store where it was purchased showed someone matching his description. It was enough to bring him in for questioning about violating the conditions of his release. Derek denied everything, of course. He claimed he'd been home all day when the phone was purchased. Without concrete proof, they had to release him again, but the incident was documented and would be used in the upcoming trial. The days blurred together after that. I spent most of my time at my parents' house, working remotely and trying to piece my life back together. Amber helped me find a small apartment I could afford on my own, but I wouldn't be able to move in for another month. In the meantime, I felt like I was living in limbo, unable to go back to my old life, but not quite able to start a new one either. Vanessa seemed to be handling things better than I was. She'd installed new security measures at her apartment and had started seeing a therapist to process everything. She even went on a date with a guy from her running club, which I took as a positive sign that she wasn't letting this experience make her afraid of all men. 2 weeks after Derek's arrest, I received a call from Officer Martinez. They'd executed another search warrant, this time on a storage unit rented in Derek's name. What they found made my blood run cold. There were restraints, she told me grimly, duct tape, zip ties, S-datives, and detailed plans about abducting someone. The notes didn't specifically name your sister, but given everything else we know, I couldn't speak. The implications were too horrifying to process. Derek hadn't just been fantasizing about hurting Vanessa, he'd been actively planning to do it. Is he back in custody? I finally managed to ask. Yes, Officer Martinez assured me, and this time, no bail. The judge considers him a danger to the community. The relief was immediate, but tinged with horror at how close Vanessa might have come to being abducted. If I hadn't found those pictures on Derek's laptop when I did, would he have gone through with his plan? The thought was unbearable. I called Vanessa immediately after hanging up with Officer Martinez. She was silent as I relayed what the police had found. Then she started crying. I could have been, she couldn't finish the sentence. But you weren't, I reminded her. He didn't get the chance, and now he never will. That night, my parents, Vanessa, and I sat together in the living room, processing the news. My dad, who had been the most skeptical initially, kept apologizing for not believing me sooner. I just couldn't imagine someone we welcomed into our home being capable of something like this, he said. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. My mom reached over and squeezed my hand. You saved your sister, she said. You trusted your instincts when no one else did. I hadn't thought of it that way before. I'd been so focused on my own feelings of betrayal and violation that I hadn't fully processed what might have happened to Vanessa if I hadn't discovered Derek's obsession when I did. Later that night, as I lay in bed trying to sleep, my phone buzzed with a text from Amber. Just heard the news from your mom. Holy crap. You're literally a hero, you know that? I stared at the message for a long time. A hero? I didn't feel like one. I felt like someone whose life had been turned upside down, who'd discovered the person she loved was a monster, who'd lost her home and her sense of security in the span of a few days. But maybe Amber was right in a way. Despite everything, I'd trusted what I saw and acted on it, and in doing so, I might have saved my sister from something unimaginable. As I finally went off to sleep, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks, a sense of peace. Derek was in custody, Vanessa was safe, my family believed me, and somehow eventually, I would rebuild my life. The preliminary hearing for Derek's case was scheduled for the following week. Officer Martinez explained that I would need to testify about finding the photos and hidden cameras. The day before the hearing, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered it. Hello? I said cautiously. Is this Derek's girlfriend? A woman's voice asked. Ex-girlfriend, I corrected immediately. Who is this? There was a pause. My name is Rachel. I dated Derek about 2 years ago. My heart started racing. This must be one of the other women Officer Martinez had mentioned. I saw his arrest in the news, Rachel continued, and I just needed to talk to someone who would understand. We ended up talking for over an hour. Rachel's story was disturbingly similar to mine. She dated Derek for about 8 months. After they broke up, initiated by her when she found disturbing material on his computer, he'd stalked her for months. She'd filed a police report, but without enough evidence, nothing came of it. Eventually, she'd moved to another state to get away from him. I should have pushed harder, she said, crying. Maybe if they'd arrested him then, he wouldn't have been able to do this to you and your sister. It's not your fault, I assured her. The system failed you, not the other way around. Rachel asked if she could come to the hearing to support me. I was touched by the offer and immediately said yes. The thought of having someone there who truly understood what I'd been through was incredibly comforting. The next day was the day of the hearing. I dressed carefully in a simple blouse and skirt, wanting to look put together and credible. Vanessa drove me to the courthouse with my parents following in their car. Amber had taken the day off work to be there too. In the courthouse parking lot, I spotted a woman who looked to be in her early 30s, nervously checking her phone. Rachel? I called out. She looked up, and her face broke into a relieved smile. Yes, you must be. Yes, I confirmed, walking over to her. We hugged like old friends rather than strangers connected by trauma. Together, our small group walked into the courthouse. I felt stronger with them around me. My sister, my parents, my best friend, and now Rachel. Derek had tried to isolate me, to make me doubt myself and my perceptions, but he had failed. As we waited outside the courtroom, Officer Martinez approached with news. Derek's attorney has reached out about a possible plea deal, she informed me. He's willing to plead guilty to reduce charges if we agree not to pursue the more serious ones related to the items found in the storage unit. I considered this. A plea deal would mean no trial, no having to testify, no cross-examination by Derek's attorney, no chance of him being found not guilty if a jury didn't believe me. What kind of sentence would he get? I asked. With the evidence we have, even with reduced charges, we're looking at several years in prison, Officer Martinez replied, and he'd have to register as a SX offender upon release. There would also be a permanent restraining order protecting both you and your sister. I looked at Vanessa, silently asking her opinion. She nodded slightly. I think we should take it, I told Officer Martinez, as long as he goes to prison and can't contact either of us again. The relief I felt at not having to testify was overwhelming, but part of me was disappointed too. I'd been prepared to face Derek, to tell my story publicly, to make sure everyone knew what he'd done. As if reading my thoughts, Rachel spoke up. It's okay to be relieved, she said quietly. You don't owe anyone your trauma as a spectacle. What matters is that he's being held accountable. She was right. Whether through a trial or a plea deal, Derek would face consequences for his actions. He would go to prison. He would be labeled a SX offender for the rest of his life. He wouldn't be able to do this to anyone else. We left the courthouse with mixed emotions. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined, but maybe it was better this way. That evening, my family, Amber and Rachel, gathered at my parents' house for dinner. It felt like a celebration of sorts. As Rachel was leaving, she hugged me tightly. It gets better, she whispered. Not right away, and not all at once, but it does get better. I believed her. Not because I felt better already, I didn't. I still jumped at unexpected noises. I still checked over my shoulder when walking alone. I still had nightmares about Derek breaking into my room. But for the first time since discovering those photos of Vanessa, I could imagine a future where these reactions faded, where Derek became a chapter in my story rather than the whole book, where I could trust again, maybe even love again. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be quick, but it was possible. And for now, that possibility was enough. The next morning, I woke up feeling weirdly calm, like when you're in the eye of a hurricane or something.